Thank you. I'm sure it was happy.
It does. Just.
No, enough to judge.
Okay, welcome everyone to the workshop meeting for November. Northwestern Lehigh School District. At this time, I'd ask you to join me in the opening exercises. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, and please be seated. Stacy.
John Cassiano. Willard Delaker,
Here.
Joseph Fattinger. Todd Hernandez,
Here.
Becky Height here. Lauren Hunsiker here. Todd Leiser. Rachel Sheffler here. Jennifer Cenovitis.
Okay, thank you. And we will move to approve the agenda that we have in front of us. There aren't any changes or updates, so I'd entertain a motion to go with the agenda.
So moved. Oh, here.
Okay, motion by Rachel,
Second.
second by Dr. Hunsiker. Any comments or questions? Hearing on, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. And we have an agenda. And the chair will entertain any interruption in the meeting with the Philly score tonight.
That's right.
Yeah.
We don't have any.
Randy likes that too.
We do not have any first time. Only the Phillies.
Okay. This time we offer courtesy of floor to anyone who'd like to address the board and whether our press people. I don't see anybody at this time. We will do this again at the end of the meeting. So let's move right into curriculum and building issues with the Safe School Grant. Dr. Christelli.
Yeah, as always, we bring before you all grants that we're looking to apply for. This grant is a one we brought to the board in many years past. This is through the PCCD office out of Pennsylvania. It's a Safe Schools grant. We are going after some salary for our police officers as well as additional equipment to help support and enhance our safety and security posture at the school district. We're going to be seeking $93,000 and we ask for your approval next week.
Okay, any questions about the grant improvement or submission? Okay. We'll take action next week. And the state police MOU.
Yep, I'll take this one as well. So every 2 years, we're required to update our MOU with the state police. Pennsylvania State Police has overall jurisdiction over our district. We work with them to have this signed. We also submit this annually as part of our Safe Schools reporting. This is a requirement. It's come due and we just need to, get it going again.
Nothing changed.
Nope, exactly the same template as it was the last time we brought it before you.
Any questions? Okay. Then we might as well move right into policy.
I should just leave my mic on. I keep turning it on and off. All right, so policy, we got a number of policies here before you. I did, as the previous 2 months, send you an update for your Friday memo. That way you had some time to digest all of it. As you can see, this section of the policies really hone in on special education and services related like that. So you'll see a number of these policies do have significant number of changes. Those changes bring us up to date with the latest IDEA authorization, which was in 2006, I believe, as well as any amendments to IDEA, which is Individuals for Disabilities and for Education Act through ESSA, millions of different acronyms, but that's Every Student Succeeds Act. We reviewed these policies with Mrs. Edmonds, and they're before you. I'll take any questions you may have with any of the details of any of them.
Okay, so this is first reading. We'll see this for 30 days. And you'll have a chance to review them and bring any questions or comments to Dr. Sisnelvich. And I just got word that John Cassione joined us on Zoom, so he's with us tonight too. Okay, you want to do the second reading?
Yes, sir. So for a second reading, there are no updates or questions that have been asked for these policies as they were presented to you last month. I will take any additional questions you may have, but they remain as is from the last time I presented them to you.
Okay. Any questions at this point? And I would encourage you to really look through these things. As I said a number of times, policy and curriculum is one of the most important things we do as board members. So it's important that we take a look at these things and understand what we're putting in our policy manual to guide the administrators here at our school. And rescind policy, that'll just go away when we take action on the rest of them. Controversial issues.
Yes, sir.
Moving on then to operations, we'll get right into the capital improvement presentation. And this is, my understanding, just a review for us board members to know that we're going out for bids and it's just a review and we're gonna actually
That is correct.
request.
Yes, sir. Yep, and with me tonight is Randy Galliato from Alloy 5, Brendan Heller from Alloy 5, and Rob Abercrombie. How do you say it? Abercrombie. There you go. Rob's got the hardest name ever. Good luck trying to spell it. He is with Alvin Butts. He is our construction manager. And what this is, and Brenna and Randy were gracious enough to put this together, even though it's not entirely in their scope as far as a project. They put the presentation together for an easy to read format for the board to go over some of these projects. I will start it off and then turn it over to, I believe, Randy. Just a table of contents in the beginning, just to go through the projects for yourself when you're reviewing it alone. Randy, you can probably talk about this one easier than me.
Yeah, sure.
Just
So,
press your mic on there, please, sir. Thank you.
okay, sure. So, Arthur mentioned that Brenna and I put this together. It was actually Brenna together. And she did a good job. Going back, we broke this up into like 6 sections. So we try to break the projects out so we can go through each one of them. And this slide here is really an overview. And this, go back, I'm sorry. 0 is the visuals for the capital improvement plan. 1 is the high school improvements. Section 2 is the maintenance building improvements. 3, the middle school exterior. 4, middle school interior. There's a lot of visuals there. And then 5 is the timeline, and Rob is going to talk about that when we get there. So if you look at this slide, you'll see an overview of where these projects are. So 1 through 4, small little projects at the high school, the maintenance building, and then 3 and 4 both projects at the middle school.
Okay, thank you. And as I go into this next slide, the number 1 is the high school, as Randy referred to. This is about the signage. This is just a photo that they put together. This is what it looks like now. As we go forward, it's just going to add the pin letters high school to the building so that it identifies the building. And we're also looking at a potential option at the front entrance as well. But this is just for general. This was something that was always part of the project. Also in the high school, this is something that came up during my general maintenance issues or agenda items. We're going to put it into this bid package just simply because it's such a big project. As you can see here, this is a panel replacement in the high school. Over the course of the summer, we had a small panel meltdown here in the wood shop area. And it's from a 1970s panel. We were able to to dissipate it, get it contained. We transferred some of the switching around into another panel. And as we looked into it, we looked throughout the high school, and there's still 22 panels in the high school that are in that 1970 era. So this is something that we put together with Snyder Hoffman to potentially look at replacing. It's going to be on as an alternative when we get to pricing if it's not favorable. Right now, electrical components, according to Snyder Hoffman, are off the charts, but we felt it necessary to put it together to potentially fix this. So this is something that was outside the original scope, but it's also something that we just want to get a pricing on because it is so volatile with pricing right now. It just makes sense. If it's not favorable, we'll just hold it off till another time. We're able to facilitate other alternatives. As we go into the operations and maintenance electrical building, this is the stuff that we talked about at the original presentation. We have the bus yard up here. Where you see those bollards, we did take away the site lighting as per a board recommendation. And the site lighting that was taken away and removed was from the exterior outer areas. However, we still would have to trench down for a new line down the middle, and the site lightings that would be replaced are in the center of the sidewalk where we have to trench. We have to take down the 3 existing light poles in order to get our trench down there. So we would replace them with something more modern. This is just a snapshot overview of that building and that facility. Out here color coded, you can see where the tank would go. That would be the new tank right next to the existing tank. That highlighted big rectangle, that would sort of be an island with a small canopy for fueling. One side would be for gas, one side would be for bus, similar to any other gas station like you might see in a commercial setting. It's simply an island with the gas pumps on either side of it. Pretty straightforward. Some of the driveway repairs up there off of Hunters Hill or Northwestern Road there where you can see the highlighted area as well. That's going to get a little bit smoother. Take out that big swale that is just sort of rocking the buses as we come into the yard. And I'm going to probably turn it over to Randy for the rest of it so he can talk about the middle school project and the doors.
So
Before we leave the maintenance.
Yes, sir.
Part.
Yeah.
That generator on the previous slide.
Yep.
Is that gonna be propane with an underground tank or?
Right now it's slated as a diesel. And it's also an alternate. It's one of the alternates, and Rob could talk about what's an alternate, but that was something that we did previously during the project when we did the electrical upgrades for the phone system. And so if you remember during that conversation, we originally had it in a different location. This sort of changes the location, puts it out into the front yard there, and makes it a little bit easier to access it. So we're hoping it's more favorable for bidding. And if you remember at the time, some of that direction came from Malin Rex because of his bidding. When he bid it with the Billatier company, he had some recommendations that maybe we could save some costs for that. So we took some of his recommendations, implemented them, put them into this drawing, and we're going to see how it comes up.
So is the tank part of the generator?
The tank would be part of the generator. Has it, you know how it sits on top.
All right.
Yeah, we can explore a propane option if,
I just wondering where.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I'll pick up at the exterior door replacements, which involves the middle school building and also the maintenance building. We tried to make this diagram easy for everyone to read, highlighting each door. And if you look at the bottom right to a key, you'll see a quantity of doors that will be replaced. So there will be 3 replaced single doors at the maintenance building. And
I can also talk about the water line. This is a project that has been going on for 2 years now, even a little bit before COVID. If you remember, the water line needs to be replaced from the wellhead, which is right there by the bleachers, just outside the stadium, right across the yard, get into the middle school building. That's sort of going to be partnered with McClure. The bidding component is going to be that exterior work. McClure is going to do some of the interior work because they're going to be tearing down ceilings. So we're going to make sure we're not duplicating work. And then once you get back into the boiler room and you actually sit a skid unit with pumps and the chlorination system, the contractor would take over that component as well. So this is something that is still on the docket. We're waiting for DEP approval. We felt it necessary to put it into this bid package, for advertising purposes and also make it more lucrative for bidders. So it's part of it. This is just a project that has still been outlined for for a few years now. I'm just letting you know, really, it's DEP has been the one that has held up this process. They haven't signed off on it yet.
Well, in over 2 years, they haven't signed off on it.
Yeah, it's been in their hands at least 18 months. We've been working on it to design it probably a little over 2 years, yeah.
Is there expected to be an issue with it that they're not signing off on it or?
They say they're overworked. That's what they,
And they
That's
can get away with it.
that's what they say. Yeah, that's the only answer. We deal with them on a regular basis for our other systems and for this one. They've been recommending to us for at least 10 years to do this. Yeah,
Now you're like, here it is, but,
you're correct.
okay.
It's exactly what you feel with.
I think the board approved probably putting this out to bid 2 years ago, so it's been
Jeez.
sitting
Yeah.
that long. We can't do it obviously without their approval.
What are you crossing over here?
And that's the field. I guess they play,
No, the
Across.
the lines.
oh, those lines, that's
Parcels probably.
That's the parcels, and if you look right here, this is where they throw the javelin. This is the javelin field, the fence is here in the parking lot, and this is that javelin runway.
No, I mean.
These lines are just
They're
the
the-
parcels.
these
yeah.
Guys here.
Yeah.
These lines here.
These are the old water lines, and then also through here is the electric line that comes up. Remember, there's a pole here, and the electric line goes up through here.
So we crossing over water lines?
While we're abandoning it, it's the old one,
Okay, they're
It's
just gonna.
correct. We're gonna leave that abandoned in place and just run a new one.
You're not the only one waiting on the. trust me. That's for sure. We are good. Go to middle school.
Yep.
So for the middle school, we are replacing every exterior door. With new doors for security purposes and also for handicap. Should I start over? Also doing it for handicap accessibility purposes as well. Right now, the door leaves are 30 inches and they need to be 36 inches. So we are, as we're replacing these doors, fixing those problems as we go. So on the lower level of the school, there are roughly 11 doors that will be replaced. Upstairs, there's 23 doors that will be replaced. And you'll notice some of these doors are in storefront. So where they're in the storefront, it's important to note that we're actually replacing, we have to replace all of the storefront. The single doors are the only doors that we can really replace in kind, because in order to fix the handicap accessibility issue, we have to increase the frame as well. We are replacing these doors with plastic laminate doors for maintenance and giving a solid door for security,
Similar to the one that it's on.
similar to those guys. And these diagrams just show each location of those doors. And then moving on to the site, we've been talking about site lighting for a while. I drove through earlier. It certainly is dark, and we are going to fix that with what you see here. A picture of the bollards to the left, which will be security bollards, but also have a light fixture on them. And you can see the key there. That's the small dot around the building. So the walkways will actually be lit, the surface, and type 2, the light post. You'll see there's 5 there, 1 at each entrance and 3 in the middle. And that's really where you really need the light at this point. We're just getting light from the perimeter.
Security bollards, you mean like the ones people can't drive through?
Well, they look like that, but it's. If you hit it, you're gonna knock it over, but it's to stop people.
It's Sunday down.
It's not the concrete,
It's not, okay,
but they're the bollard type fixture.
all right.
And then at the front entrance, we are looking to improve this. I know we've presented a few schemes over the years, but that's the way that the front entrance looks today. And that is what we're looking to do to improve it. So we're looking to add a new sign to help mark the entrance. You can see those bollard lights there to the right. New storefront at the front entrance and new pin letters to mark the entrance as the main entrance. We've gone through a few iterations of this over the years, and this seems to be where we like.
May I just interrupt for a moment? I know, I think it was Mr. Lizer brought up when we first talked about this, about those plants and trees and things, how they cast shadows and darkness into that area and the possibilities of changing it or cleaning it up a little bit or relocating some of that, because I believe at least one of them was a remembrance tree. Is there any more discussion about that?
That was actually one of the first proposals that Randy presented. So when he says a few iterations, the original proposal was to essentially get rid of that. The board at the time decided against it because it was cost prohibitive and to go with, my words, a simpler solution. Anybody who was on the board at the time can certainly add to that. But Randy's first recommendation was to get rid of that entire planter for sightline, being able to see the middle school, recognizing the middle school main entrance, all of those things. But because of, you would have to build a wall because it drops off so significantly there, you would have to build, it wasn't a wall, like a retaining wall with a fence on top so that someone couldn't hurt themselves. It was cost prohibitive and the board decided against it at that time. So this is the simpler solution. I mean, you can certainly add to this.
And also to add what you were referring to, I gotta speak with Mr. DeVico because we did clear out some of it yet. We gotta figure out who's memorialized by that tree.
Yeah.
That we haven't figured out yet. And once we figure that out, we'll either plant it in another location. That's similar to what we did in the high school. When we renovated the front of the high school, we got everybody together that sort of had these trees, put them into one memorial and put them somewhere else. And so that's probably what we'll do. Because as part of the HVAC system, there's a vent that goes in there. And so they have to do some work on that outside to get to it on the left side where you can't see. And so this summer, we will address getting those sight lines open
Okay,
a little further.
all right, good.
Plus to get out there to the electric and that sign light, you know, with that Randy's proposing there, that'll be lit up. So we have to get out there and through it and we'll end up killing the tree anyway, probably to get the line through. So we'll probably place it in another location.
And then out back, of course, should say the auditorium entrance. These photos show the existing conditions of those sidewalks. We are gonna replace those sidewalks. Gonna replace the sidewalks at the auditorium entrance. Here's an image of what it looks like today. We're gonna fix the sidewalks and we're also gonna address the storefront. And in addressing that storefront, it allows us to do a couple of things. Door security, handicap accessibility. There's also a vestibule there, which you see the AUD sign on. That's unused. We're gonna actually use that room as a storage room, so we can have some use out of it. We're gonna put a graphic on the glass so that there's no longer transparent. We'll fix up the landscaping, as you can see, and add some bollard lighting and all new sidewalks.
Yeah, that's enough.
Any questions before I move on to the interior of the other one?
They're off to the left of the building and you can't, the left of the loading dock. You can't see them. Yes,
We'll be there.
they will be.
So the auditorium, in general, we're going to renovate the entire auditorium. A new HVAC system, and handicap accessibility for the stage. What you're seeing in front of you right now is the way that it exists today. And this image here is the proposed plan. So we found ourselves with a whole list of things to address to improve the conditions in the auditorium. They certainly are handicap accessibility.
When you stop talking, it shuts off.
Okay, that explains it.
Yeah.
Handicap accessibility, we're going to address acoustics, overall comfort of the space and the HVAC, and updating the all of the stage rigging systems and curtains. So if I go 1 through 9, New vestibule, with storage up front that I mentioned at the entrance. All new acoustic doors going.
Randy, can I stop you right there just for one? For anybody that does not know, when you go out of that auditorium parking lot, and you probably do know, there's a sort of a recess area for the students. In that vestibule is where they store all the balls, the throwing items, the things for the Gaga pit. That's what's in that, that's what's gonna be in that storage room, contained, hidden out of the vestibule. That's the purpose for that storage room being created. That's right. Yeah.
Okay, so 3 new stage lighting, curtains, ceiling clouds for acoustics and rigging. All new wall covering. If you've been in there, you've seen the existing wall covering is something that I've never seen before. We're going to replace that. New ADA walkway and stairs. So we've added a walkway here along the side of the auditorium. And this will allow access, sorry, to the stage from the auditorium itself without having to go upstairs. It's also a platform that can be used during performances, etc. And all new seats. We are losing a few seats for that walkway, but we're going to have approximately 754, which is down from 800. All new carpet and paint. I think we did decide on carpet throughout the seating area. And new ceilings. So what you see there today in the plaster ceilings will be removed and we'll replace it with wood sound clouds. You'll see an image of that in a minute. And then a new control booth and AV equipment.
Randy, if you could just touch on, because a question was asked from the board about the walkway, why it goes all the way to the back, and then how you also addressed it by adding the rows.
So you have a unique situation because your stage is actually 3'6", right? 3'4", 3'6". Normal stage is 3 feet, and so it's higher than normal. But in order to hit a 0 elevation in the seating area and on the stage, it takes you all the way back to the area that we're showing here. And when you're doing ramps and those sort of things, in order to not have railings, like what we call 1 to 20. So for every 20 inches, you only go up 1, or 20 feet, you only go up 1 inch. We couldn't get it to work quite right to go back up. So we wanted it to just be flat and obstruction free, because if we put railings on it, it'll be recycled.
Does that ramp connect then to the front of the stage? So if there was a child who needed to accept an award, they could go up that ramp and go right to the front of the stage and across it?
Correct.
Okay,
But we're calling it a ramp, but it's actually flat.
it's fine.
So because the rest of the auditorium pitches down, this will be from the rear flat around the stage.
Yes. That's what's hard to see in the picture, is that it doesn't connect like to the actual stage.
Yeah, you might see a little better picture,
You will see.
but right now it's not accessible from the front side.
Correct, it's only the back.
And the other major change that you should note at the board is the aisles that he added, the egress and the reason. And if you go to the previous picture, how it was to how it is, instead of the one down the center, you now put those into the side to facilitate the most amount of seats and whatever. Right, it's good.
So this is the wedding venue. And this is the right center aisle. I did a design a church in school, and I missed the center aisle. Didn't do so well in that project. So this is an image of the way the auditorium looks today. You'll see that plaster ceiling that I talked about us removing. And the seats right now are concrete under the seats and carpet around, and we are going to just carpet the entire facility. So then Brenna put together these nice renderings. You can tell she's a tiger because she threw your brand in there for you. It's really an amazing transformation, and What we try to do when we take ceilings out and expose structures is to paint it black so it kind of fades away. And you can sneak the house lights up there. Trying to keep that theme throughout. If you look to the right, I know it's a little dark, but you can see this is the platform that we were talking about here. And it is certainly flat, everything else slopes. If we were to put a railing on here, you would see that if you're sitting in these seats here in front of us, it would block your view. So we're looking at improving that situation, a whole new proscenium opening. We added some wood to really warm the place up. Graphic for your tiger graphic, and then you see the acoustic panels that add color and warmth around the entire. Like that.
I mean, all of these recommendations were also coordinating with the acoustician, so we're not just picking things out of nowhere. So a lot of the recommendations, the acoustic panels, there's tilted solid surface, those are all coming from an expert in Peter. So
And he was given very specific directions to make it simple to use and for every activity. It's not designed for one activity in mind, it's designed for everything a middle school might throw at it.
We can look at the next view. If this will go.
Way out.
Almost immediately.
Almost made it, they say, you might have to click them through.
Yep. Yep. There's an image looking straight ahead. Yep, and then if you go to the next view, you'll see what they look like at the end. And so you can see the seat transformation, the proscenium, and how that platform, called walkway, runway, to the right looks for accessibility. And that's a good point. We did work with an acoustician who is really very detail oriented and, I call him like the biggest pain in the butt in the world. But he does like to get these spaces perfect so that there aren't any issues at the end of the day. If you go to the next slide, you'll see the existing batteries dying all over the place.
No. Oh, you're good.
Like it usually does.
You didn't turn your mic back on.
Should work with those. If you go to the next slide, you'll see just looking out into the auditorium from the stage and what it will, feel like to actually perform on the stage. And that is just as much important as it is how it functions when you're actually there. So
And part of the acoustician's process, as well as Randy, was to talk to the people that use the stage. So we met with the middle school band, theater people out there, Mr. DeVico, everybody had input into how it gets designed, both on this side and that side. So they were part of this consideration.
Is that what looks like a curb going down the walkway or across the front of the stage as well?
yeah, that's
Or is it-
it's like we'll call it a wheel stop. If
Yeah.
there's a wheel stop there.
So that wheel stop goes across the stage.
Yeah. So I'm gonna pass. If there's any questions, I'll take any questions. If not, I'll pass to Rob and we can talk about what the timeline.
All right, thanks, Randy. So again, I'll echo Brennan did a great job putting this together because I think it helps explain this to everybody, not only us here, but eventually we'll use this to talk to some bidders and get some good, really this will explain the project to prospective bidders. So with this timeline, so we are still in the pre-construction phase now. We are, right now, we're at the second blue arrow there with the November. We're at the November 2nd date. To date, we have received, we're about at the 60% construction document phase. The next milestone from Brenna and Randy is November 25th, where we'll get the 90% construction drawings for everything that you saw tonight. And then what Butch will do, we'll create the project manual. So you'll hear us say that project manual term a lot. That's when we take these drawings. We'll carve out the scopes of work. We'll assign scopes of work to certain bidders. We'll include all the front end documents, all the state required bidding documents, the schedule. So that's what we'll do. We'll do a constructability review, work with ARP, work with LOI5. And then really, this way, by the end of December, we'll take that 90% set and we'll perfect it as best as we can, so that we want to go out to bid December 20th. So those documents to December, so December 20th, those documents will become available to the public, to the bidders. So from December 20th through the month of January will be the bidding process. We'll have site visits with the bidders here on site. And then we'll receive bids. We propose to receive bids February 2nd. The day after, we'll be able to summarize all those bids in a simple Excel bid summary, which we'll distribute to Art, and Art can share with you all on February 3rd. From that moment on for the next week, we'll do what we call our D-scope meetings, which is we'll sit down with all the bidders and this group here, and we'll make sure that they bid the correct scope of work, that there's no holes in their bid. All right, so we'll make sure that the numbers are correct. And then on February 10th, right, February 10th, we will issue our recommendation for those bidders at those bid prices. And the intent here is that you have a February 15th board meeting. Right, so that the intent would be on February 15th would be the ultimate approval to proceed with those projects. So then if that's the case, the following day, we'll issue notices of intent to all those bidders to start gathering their paperwork, start the process. So that your following board meeting, which is March 15th.
March 16th, I think. 15th, yeah.
Well, okay, we would we would have the contracts ready for you for execution for all the prime contractors in that mid-March board meeting.
Yeah, for new board members, you have to issue a notice to proceed formally from the board in order for a contractor or a bidder to get their bond. And they got to get their bond in order to issue contracts. So there is a two-step process there where you have to sort of say yes the first time, issue to proceed, and then the contract gets reviewed by our legal team, their legal team. We go back and forth, make sure they have the bond, and then you formally approve that contract. So there is those two-step process for awarding these.
And then, we'll issue that notice to proceed after that March 15th board meeting. And then it's, we're ready to start. So now you saw there's so many different projects in here. The schedule would be, in that spring timeframe. It says May here, but if there's an opportunity that we can jump on some of that work earlier, specifically some of that outside work, we will, working with Art. But we know that the longest project is going to be that auditorium. And so we know that we're not going to start that auditorium until the summer, until commencement, right? It's commencement ceremony.
Moving up ceremony. Yeah.
So we wouldn't start that until the summer. And then, following March of 24, we would expect to be all wrapped up with all these projects. And as Art alluded to before, some of the way we're breaking this up when we bid it, so the generator, some of the site lights, anything else for the fire alarm, the electrical panels, we're breaking these up so that if the board decides not to do that high school electrical panel, we'll have that price completely separate. So we're bidding it out smart so that you don't want to do one. It's easy to just pull that out.
Correct. Yeah, so when we come back in the February board meeting with the intent to award, you're going to be able to look at the project as a whole and sort of pick and choose these items and say, well, the budget's a little over, or the budget's a little under, let's do them all. If it's a little over, maybe we pull this out and do it at another time. And we just hold on that one, and you'll have that decision point then, because when we leave that February board meeting, we're gonna issue the intent to award. And now the contractors can start to get their bond, or they get a rejection letter that we're not going forward with something. That's the decision you'll have at that point. And then once they come back, it'll be a true contract in your hand, with AIA ready to go. To move forward.
At what point do the prices of things get locked in? You know, like, so at what point do they still are variable? And then when do they become a fixed cost?
So at the. When we receive bids in February, that bid price is valid for. Whether it's 60 or 90 days, whatever we decide that period is, but that's it, so. Assuming we would give them that notice of intent to award. On February 16th. I mean, that's the price, that's good, it's good from, they have to honor their bid price.
2 points of note for board members who have done this before, Woods does do this a little differently. There's not a general contractor, so they do bid it when he called all the primes. So those of you who have done contract and construction projects with us before, there was always a general contractor.
Right.
They do things a little differently in terms of they bid out individual primes to individual contractors instead of everything running through a GC. So you'll see all the prices, electrical, plumbing, mechanical, separate. Which is why he's talking about being able to kind of pick and choose. So,
How many primes do you have? Primes?
yeah, do you know how many primes?
We're, yes,
We're at 11, I think.
we're around the, yeah, somewhere around there.
11 or 12 different contracts you would have. So when you come back, so the reason I asked Rob to get that contract to you, because you notice if you look at the timeline, you'll miss the workshop. So you won't hear about it at the workshop because the bids won't be opened until that Friday. So the first look pricing that he's talking to you about, I will get to you, but you won't know that they've met the requirements until after that. But we will get you that pricing as soon as it comes in, so you can take a first look at it. Then give him a week or so to go through it. And then just like we've seen in the past, you'll get a bid tabulation sheet that have all of the prices and he will highlight or circle or bold out, I'm not sure how you do it, what his recommendations are. Our recommendation is to award the electrical contract to so-and-so for this amount of money. And that's what you will see at that meeting. And that's where the price is locked in, and that's sort of the no turning back point. Once you issue the motion to proceed, they go and issue a bond on your behalf and they go start to secure materials, et cetera, for the project. Obviously pending the approval of the contract at the next board meeting.
So I would assume the construction trailers and the staging area are gonna be in the park.
That's correct, yeah,
Middle school.
middle school parking lot. We'll work around the parent pickup because.
Yeah.
You know, that's the best option, but yeah. We'll be full.
So if you're splitting it up so that we can pull things out, is that gonna mess with pricing? Like, say they're bidding on, all of the lights, and we pull out the lights for the middle school, are they gonna change their? Are they bidding a lower price because they know they're getting all of these lights, and then we're like, oh, you're only doing some of these lights, like.
No, so we'll have it makes sense. It makes sense, it'll be an alternate, so
Okay.
that's the way it typically happens, I mean. Here's the whole job, if we want to pull this piece out, as long as we identify it in
Okay,
the bid documents, that could be an alternate, that may not happen, that's okay,
okay, so they know that.
they know,
Okay.
right?
Anything in the document, you'll notice throughout, I mean, they certainly didn't point it out, but anytime it's listed as an alternate. In the bid documents, that's where it will be priced separately up front as something that can be pulled out. So as you look through, you'll see on the right side of every page, base bid or alternative. But you'll see the generator alternative. So those are the things that will be specifically called out. They will give us a specific separate price for. But there might be, and Art talked about us bidding the generator before. When you have an electrician on site already running wire, he might give you a good price for the generator.
That's right.
Want to price it. There's no harm. You're going out, you're doing the advertising, it's already designed. You might as well get a price that you at least now know what it costs.
Yeah, your presence of scale certainly matters, what you're doing to it does.
Yeah,
And when we create these bid packages, you refer to them, right, bid packages, so we try to group them smart so that they are attractive to bidders, right? So we don't want to have, what we don't want to have is that, for example, 2 electricians in the middle school. We don't want one doing the lighting, one doing the fire alarm. So we're trying to group that together,
that makes sense.
right?
Yeah.
And so, oh, by the way, how about a price for the high school panels, since you're already here?
For all of these.
So we're
other
trying to
things.
group it so it makes the most sense, get the most bang for your buck.
Yeah, the electrical one is probably the easiest to understand on the scale because the way that the timing lays out, you know, the auditorium may not be ready for them. So they could be pulling fire alarm wires. And if that's not ready, maybe they could be doing some site lighting or working over in the high school panels. That one's one that really makes sense. Some of the ones that he breaks out is, you know, it's specific to a company that just installs the chairs of the auditorium, the seating, or just the rigging, like that's their specialty. When you get a general contractor, the reason Woods, I think, does this philosophy is you get a general contractor, they mark up every contractor under them.
Correct, yeah.
This potentially saves some money.
So how do you run something as big as the auditorium without a general contractor? Like are you watching? You're watching.
Yeah, I mean-
Okay,
But not, I mean, I'm overseeing, it, but we would have a dedicated on full-time person.
okay,
Yeah,
somebody's still
yeah.
there running.
Yeah.
Okay,
Right, so Art would see this person all the time.
Okay.
Right, I mean, so that's how we would do it.
We talked a little bit about concerns for availability of the electrical panels and components.
Yes.
Anything else in this project that that might be put us in jeopardy for timing? The materials?
You've hit on the biggest one, electric
Electrical.
panels.
Yeah.
And again, we deal with this almost every day. You don't know until you're ready to actually place the order. So right now, if we were to ask, we'll get generic lead times. But you won't know until the contractor's ready to get a real number. So we think, you know, for example, the auditorium seating, we thought that might be a long item. Brenda, you checked, but do you remember that duration? I don't recall, but it wasn't crazy. It wasn't a showstopper. So we feel like we've done the upfront due diligence.
And the doors available? Storefront stores?
Storefront doors, metal doors aren't that out of touch. Wood doors, that's a different story, but no, these doors that we have here are not a showstopper.
Yeah, I think we've heard some lead times for some seating and auditorium items from 24 weeks seem to be the longest of all. Except for like a generator. A generator is over a year, I think
Yeah.
is what Snyder Hoffman said. If you order it today, you won't get it for a year, so. It's just on the chart, it's unbelievable. But as Rob mentioned, it locks the price in, it's set, once that contract is signed, it's set in price however long it takes.
What's your feel for the market as far as having enough competitive bids? Like, you think we're gonna do pretty well at this time frame?
I mean,
I know it's a gut.
I
it's
no,
just a gut
I
feel.
do. I mean, we do this often. I mean, I personally do it often, almost all the time. I feel that a few things. I feel that our Butts name and reputation in the valley attracts certain bidders. I think working for Northwestern Lehigh is going to attract a certain group of bidders. The way that we put our product out there, that project manual, we try and write it so that it's easy to follow. We try and eliminate all the gray areas, right? The things that you don't think about, you know, we've been, you know, lessons learned, all those things we try and write. So we don't have issues down the road. So I feel that if we, you know, in December, so I didn't mention this, but we're gonna advertise this project. We have dates picked out, December 16th will be the first public advertisement. So as soon as we advertise on December 16th, that's when we, behind the scenes, reach out to contractors and start to get them engaged in this project. Right, so, you know, I hope this doesn't burn me later, but I feel like that's our job to ensure that we get at least 3 bidders for each of the packages that we're gonna create. So,
So we'll be without an auditorium from September to March.
Yeah, March is the worst case scenario, potentially January, if everything would go well,
But
but
you're gonna take it before May, you're gonna take it right after school, right?
as soon as the moving up
Not-
ceremony
As
is
soon as
finished.
the moving up ceremony, they're gonna take it, so they won't wait until September. to
Okay.
take it.
Correct, sorry,
Which
yeah.
is the moving up ceremony, like literally the next day, I think we have them moving in there.
Okay.
And they are prepared to relocate the programs that are in there, and it won't be, I mean, same thing, we have to relocate the high school for a little bit too. It's not ideal, but
And Mrs. Height, just to also add, this is an Outlet 5 project, so they don't walk away either. They're fully involved in every part of the selection process. So although
Yeah.
Rob has his people on site, Outlet 5 still has the ultimate say throughout the entire project as to what gets installed, how it gets installed.
And what order, yeah.
Any issue still has to go through Outlet 5 for decision points.
Yeah, kind of did that with renting, because
Yeah,
we're a team here, so we do this all together, I mean, so.
all the submittals go through both of them. They have to approve everything, so.
Okay.
It's a partnership.
Very nice.
Drawings are really nice.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
good
mean.
job.
Yeah,
Northwest
I like
Control.
it, they have been great to work with, I mean, thank you for putting it together.
Brandon graduated.
Yeah, graduate.
Yeah.
I graduated from Northwestern.
2007.
2006. So,
Oh my God.
this has been like
Tell me. if-
an extra special project for me to work on, be able to, I'm very familiar with the school and being able to,
Where did you go to school? Africa.
I was like, Marywood University up in Scranton. So I graduated from the degree in interior architecture and.
And she did very well while she was there, and she was the top student in her class.
Oh.
And she was awarded that, and she didn't tell us about that. I had to find out,
And then you went
so
to.
very humble.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, she came to work in May, right?
Yeah.
June.
or right after I graduated, yeah.
I'll be a little bit jealous that we're doing this and
Yeah.
you went through with the old one.
No, it's okay.
If I could say, just thank you to LA 5 and Blitz and her and company, we met a lot to be able to get it kind of to where it is today, and I know the board has had lots of renditions of conversations over time. But not certainly required for you to see this, but wanted to see what's going on the street, and Brennan's beautiful work to be able to show what the middle school will look like, not that very long from now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. It's gonna be nice. Been waiting for 28 years. To fix this, so I was going.
I actually just want to give to the board member right here, if you don't mind. Do you have any questions for? Anything about the project timeline, financing? I mean, we hope that, when you asked about the supply chain, I giggled as you asked some questions, because I said to them, they're gonna have to do this, you're gonna have to do this, and some of them I was right on. Supply chain, we asked the same questions about supply chain and what are we gonna expect and not expect, and I think our anxiousness will be when the prices come in and how close are they to, because that's the unknown of how things are fluctuating now, to see how close the prices will be to what we anticipated, so. We'll see that in February and go from there.
So Jen, February is when we have to thumbs up and thumbs down on whether we're doing.
So we'll have the February workshop.
Yeah.
The bids will be open right after that. So that Friday, I will send them to you, but they're not gonna have recommendations on them at that point. They're little baby, this is what we got.
Okay.
They will take some time to go through, make sure they met the requirements, make sure they're an appropriate bidder, make sure they can get the bid bonds. I don't know what else, but it takes them some time. But since we'll miss workshop, we will get you out like first look pricing, just like if you had been at opening. So they do a bid opening here, like rip open the envelopes and kind of report them. We'll have all the bidders here. We'll get you that first report that Friday, so you can see what they look like. And then a week later for the Friday, the 10th, I believe it is, when it goes out on the board agenda, it'll have the recommendations from our team. We're recommending you award to these folks this electrical contractor for this amount, and that will be where he mentioned the 16th, your board meeting is on the 15th, the following morning. If you approve it, they will issue the intent to proceed.
Okay.
How do you handle the change orders? The way you're organized?
Good question. So we do it. I'll say we have a multiple prong approach to that. So first of all, that scope of work that we write. That's step one. We try and eliminate areas that we've been burned on before, or the gray areas that always come up on every job. We do work closely with Alloy 5 and Art to try and go over any little nuances, of the building, so we try and identify it early and write it into the documents. Second of all, what we like to do is include an allowance in every single bid package. So if I have 12 bid packages, each one will have an allowance proportionate to the size and scope of their work. So that when stuff happens, and it will because it's a renovation. Let's just say we have a $5,000 allowance. We come across something unknown. We'll be the first gateway on the contractor's price. He'll say that'll cost X. We'll review it. If we're okay with it, then I'll ask Alloy 5 to confirm that as well. And if they're okay with it, then it'll come up to Art. And if he's okay with it, then we'll authorize the contractor to proceed with that work. So that by doing it with the allowances, we don't have to wait to a future board meeting. We can keep the job moving. But we take changes pretty serious. I mean, I don't want to come back here and explain changes in front of with the microphone either. So, so I mean, it's.
He got burned in the high school project with firewalls up in the ceiling.
We did.
We take a look at that. Did we take a look at, close look at that? Well, I don't think we're gonna even get into that with what we're doing in our.
It's all blocked.
Yeah,
And it's
your renovations are tough.
Any of the egress issues you address with adding those roads.
the code's written that if protecting it, you have to bring it up to code. But once you exceed a certain 50% of the building area, then you have to bring it all up to code. So we are not in that area of bringing it all. I think your high school approached that and we had some issues because it wasn't sprinkler, right? Correct. And I wasn't involved with it, but I think those were the issues. Life safety things that should.
Firewall from the ceiling to
The hallways, right?
And I think part of the process is for you guys to go and you get approval and permit process, start that ahead of time. And so we're not waiting on the contractor, so that should hope alleviate any surprises that a contractor might come back with.
And we also, when we have those D-scope meetings, as I call them. That's where we identify if there's any holes in their scope of work, so. That's really maybe step one. So.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
You are free to go off to Philly.
Listen to the.
Go listen to the Philly.
Thank you. Last night I was listening on 380 and cutting out. And every time it came back on, the score changed.
You missed all the good stuff.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you for coming.
Thanks.
Good presentation, good review.
Beautiful work.
Thank you. We're gonna do the food service agreement. Is that- have we talked about this already?
Yes, we'll take this one. So this is a new item for the board. We need to establish an agreement between us and the CLIU for offering food services to them. So we've been doing this actually for years. So the IU has two schools within our district bounds, LLAS, which is the Junior Lehigh Learning Achievement School, and then CLEA, which is why I think it's LCEA, which is Lehigh Carbon Enhanced Autism. They're two programs down near Burnsville Road, actually right next to New Tripoli Bank. And so we've been feeding them for years. We've now learned that we need to have an established agreement between them because the way it works is we are receiving students from outside of our district and we're serving them meals. So we count those students outside of the district into our meal counts to the state for reimbursement. And in order for us to do that, as well as, have oversight of those, two sites, we need to have this established. So this is almost like a cleanup agreement that we found out that we needed to put in place as, we started to really flesh out things and, working with the state. So I'm asking for your approval of this. This will also be brought before the Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit Board as well. So they can execute it. So Mrs. Cenovitis is, we'll inform her to expect that so she doesn't have a surprise. I know what's this.
Okay, any questions? Thank you. We have Act 57 resolution.
Good evening. So Act 57 was just passed this July and went into effect October. What it is for new homeowners that come and say, we never got our July 1st bill, and now you're sending me a notice that I'm delinquent in paying my July 1st bill. Where it got lost, we don't know, but they've always had to pay the penalty. So what this act is doing is giving them a reprieve from the penalty and just paying at the flat amount. So they have to go through a process. They have to fill out a form with the tax collector. They have to prove that they own the property, that they bought the property, because they have to have this property within a 12-month time period. Once they bought the property, to get out of paying the penalty amounts. They have to prove that they were the homeowner, that they purchased the property. They have to state that they did not receive the tax bill. And they also, they're the two things, sorry. They have to state that they didn't receive the tax bill and that they're the owner, showing proof that they bought the property when they bought the property. DCD came up with a form that they have to complete and give to the tax collector. So this resolution is just saying that we are going to accept that form and waive them of their penalties, as long as they adhere to all the requirements.
Is this for new? Oh, sorry, right.
It's
Yeah,
for new.
So it's only a
yes.
one-time thing, like the
Correct.
next year. they're like,
Yes.
"We forgot," okay.
Yep, yes,
So-
that's one time, you're right, it has to be within a 12-month period of purchasing the property.
Bill asked, do you know what brought this on? Like, do you know what started this legislation?
No, we just got notification in July about this new act that was coming through.
Okay, so we will take action.
Yes.
And then we have a Northwestern Elementary Artist in Residence Agreement.
Correct.
Mosaic on the wall.
Yeah, every year, in the last few years, we have been getting an artist in resident coming to the elementary schools. And the foundation has generously been funding that program for us. They are going to do it again this year. So this is just the agreement for Mosaic coming in for December and January for the elementary school.
Mr. Jellicoe had a question earlier, so I did talk to Mrs. Foley and she said, there's often a theme, but certainly it's something that goes through the school in terms of if we want to see what the mosaic is beforehand. There's typically a theme that they go with, like last time was barnyard farm animals that they put on the wall. But yes, there's usually a theme of the artist in the books for whatever the mosaics are.
Yeah, these things are kind of permanent.
They are, it's painted on the
You can
wall.
Say as to what's gonna be on this mosaic before it goes on.
They always do such a good job, though, like getting the kids involved, and it really brightens up the
If
space.
you go on the website of this place, I forget what it's in the, it's in the script. There's some interesting, features and pictures about this company that does that. From Philadelphia and all the colleges and universities that have used them. It's kind of interesting. So anyway, we will take, action in 2 weeks. And moving into the reports, anything we ought to know about?
Just, we are up in collections as of September, slightly. We are down as far as just the month of September. We were down 2.4%, $2.4 million. I've seen, we haven't gotten the reports for October, but you can tell it's the end of flat. And we're going into penalty because there's been a lot of transactions the last few days of people paying. So we are up. So I anticipate October to be a good month also. We received donations in the month of September. We received our donation from LVHN for the turf. the class of 1965 that we brought back. We were made whole for 2021 and 22 for our transportation subsidy and our entire retirement reimbursement from the state. So that was in September reports. And as far as expenses, we had 3 pays this in the month of September, so salaries are up a little more because of that third pay. And everything else is in line.
Okay, then, we will move into old business. There's nothing on the agenda. Any old business from any board members? How about new business, any new business on your mind? No, okay. Communications, we'll move back to courtesy of the floor, if anybody would like to address the board. And seeing none, we'll move into, I guess that brings us to adjournment, but before we get to mention the meeting coming up on Monday.
I was just waiting on.
Okay, all right. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion by Dr. Hunsaker, second. And meeting is adjourned. Thank you.